Part 34. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 332. Just know it. Just know it. Just know it. And Nuan knew why something felt so wrong every time she saw this cousin. It turned out that she approached Lu Chang'an with ulterior motives. From the time Qinyanan first came to the affiliated high school, her figure was completely inconsistent with the natural shape of a normal woman. Bai Hui and Nuan both didn't have much positive comments about this woman. Can I be buried in the green grassland now, silently watching the wolf cubs running and the sheep studying, while only myself is covered with grass? Oh, when she came to Junsha, we probably weren't together yet, and Nuan nodded to show that she understood something. She came here in the name of fiancé from the beginning. This is a very righteous thing. The identity of girlfriend who is particularly confident than An Nuan is more formal and more powerful. An Nuan felt like she was a mistress, just like she was holding a mahogany sword to deal with various little vixens. Suddenly her own foxtail was exposed, and she couldn't help but be horrified. It turned out that she was also about to be chopped off. Well, that's it. An Nuan opened her mouth calmly. Lu Chang'an looked at her and couldn't help but laugh. It's pretty good, she has such a good figure and her legs are so long, so I don't have any advantages. And Nuan sniffed and shrugged her shoulders, the waist is so thin and the butt is so big. Why, you are better than me and you want to steal my boyfriend. No. It's just that she is stronger than me, that's why she dares to steal my boyfriend. And Nuan's mood stabilized for a second before she began to sob aggrievedly. She raised her head and looked at the smiling Lu Chang'an with tears in her eyes. You're still laughing, and Nuan raised her fist and hit Lu Chang'an, this time a little harder. After hitting her twice, she touched Lu Chang'an's chest distressedly, cried and started hitting her a few more times. Yuck. He really changes his face in a minute, crying whenever he wants, just like Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an took An Nuan's hand and walked forward. An Nuan stood with his shoulders twitching. I'm not leaving today, I'm going to stand here forever. Lu Chang'an nodded and stood beside An Nuan to accompany him. After standing for a while, An Nuan secretly looked at Lu Chang'an. Why didn't this guy explain? An Nuan usually wears flat sneakers and sports shoes, but today is a formal date with Lu Chang'an, to watch a movie, so An Nuan wore a pair of more delicate wedge shoes with a more girlish temperament. There are also cute bows studded with rhinestones. So An Nuan snorted, walked to the bench next to him and sat down. His feet were sore after standing for so long. Aren't you going to stand still there? Lu Chang'an reminded her of the correct position. I'm sitting here not moving. An Nuan rolled her eyes at him, put her hands on her knees, and stopped crying. Go and find your fiancé. Lu Chang'an looked at the girl in front of him. Her eyelashes were still stained with moisture, as if they had been neatly combed with a comb. Her eyes were like beads, her lips were slightly pursed and her nose was wrinkled. Her beautiful face was filled with delicate grievances, and her hands pressing her knees straight, wearing pink scented shoes for small feet. Her slender legs always remind people of the comment about a man's paradise in Smell the Scent of a Woman. I don't have a fiancé, but my future fiancé is now a crying girl, crying for no reason. I decided that after 10 seconds, if she is still moaning, I will pick her up and put her on my lap for a spanking. Lu Chang'an sat next to An Nuan and pointed to his thigh. An Nuan turned her head and pouted even higher, but she quickly stopped it because she finally came to her senses. At first, it was just hard to accept that there was a woman who almost became her boyfriend's fiancé, and she was still a how can a woman who has always been wary of herself not feel frightened and aggrieved? But if Lu Chang'an really became that woman's fiancé, then how could he stand in front of him and look at him with a smile? I'm going to hum for 10 seconds, hum, 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 chirp. An Nuan turned around and punched Lu Chang'an in annoyance. You hate it, I'm not happy anymore, you still won't coax me, and you say I groaned. Lu Chang'an pulled An Nuan to stand up and continued walking forward. Our two families are family friends, so things like this are very rare and common. Just like those romance novels you read, fiancés and other things will basically appear. Lu Chang'an rarely explains to people, but she is An Nuan. I'm not qualified to ask him for an explanation, I will only choose girls I like. An Nuan hooked his palm with her fingers, her tone still humming, but I'm just worried, her breasts are so big, they feel bigger than Bianis. She is so tall, of course she needs to be bigger to look well proportioned, Lu Chang'an said objectively. You actually care about this. So, do you want to practice the Qin Wei alchemy I gave you? I've practiced, and Nuan couldn't help blurting out. Lu Chang'an watched the blush on An Nuan's cheeks spread like rouge falling into water, and slowly lowered his gaze, landing on An Nuan's chest. An Nuan hurriedly held his cheek and looked away. Looking forward to it, Lu Chang'an nodded, holding An Nuan in a stable mood and continuing to move forward. Looking forward to it, you big-headed ghost. An Nuan lowered her head in shame, and was finally led away by Lu Chang'an without making any noise. An Nuan and Lu Chang'an took the subway to Bailong Center. They also watched a movie here during the Chinese Valentine's Day. After buying the tickets, they sat in the waiting area. An Nuan still looked like a shy and good baby for the time being. A girl was sitting alone opposite Lu Chang'an. She was struggling to twist a bottle of water, her eyebrows were furrowed together. It seemed that it was not because she was not strong enough, but because some bottles and bottle caps were so dependent on each other that they were like glue. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand. The girl was stunned for a moment, understood, and handed it to Lu Chang'an sheepishly. Lu Chang'an unscrewed it, and the girl quickly said thank you, took it, and drank heavily. It seemed that she was thirsty. An Nuan looked at Lu Chang'an, took popcorn, and stuffed one into his mouth, then another, and then another. Until the movie starts. The two of them sat down. The girl just now was sitting in front of them. When she saw Lu Chang'an and An Nuan, she turned around and said hello to them with a smile. She was deeply impressed by the couple. After all, they seemed to be a good match. Moreover, the girl just now, I don't know why, but it's very interesting to stuff popcorn into the boy's mouth. There were a lot of people in the afternoon show, and the seats in the best viewing area were almost full. There were two girls sitting next to Lu Chang'an. The girl next to Lu Chang'an also held a bottle of water, gave up after twisting it, and used the water bottle, touched Lu Chang'an and showed a slightly coquettish smile. Handsome guy, can you twist it for me? Thank you. Lu Chang'an took the water bottle and looked at the girl next to him. I'll tell you a way. Oh, the girl looked at Lu Chang'an with interest. Open your mouth. The girl chuckled, but opened her mouth. Lu Chang'an stuffed the bottle into her mouth. The girl stared at Lu Chang'an dumbfounded, and even forgot to spit out the bottle. You bite the bottle cap, hold the bottle with both hands, and twist it from side to side. After saying that, Lu Chang'an let go. The girl quickly grabbed the bottle, spit it out, cursed angrily as a lunatic, and pulled her companion to sit in the back row. An Nuan couldn't help laughing. Aren't you very active in helping others twist bottles? Others do have to work hard, and it's easy, so there's no problem. In order to prevent An Nuan from stuffing popcorn into his mouth, Lu Chang'an explained, but some girls are used to their weak position in physical strength, and they like to court at every turn. Acting coquettishly on stranger men to help you solve your problem seems quite annoying, especially when my girlfriend is around. Isn't this causing trouble for me? Humph, you know that when your girlfriend is around, isn't there a question on the internet? Girls like to ask, if a girl asks her boyfriend to twist the cap of a bottle when she is around her boyfriend, what should the boyfriend do? Actually, girls are super concerned about this kind of thing, and Nuan actually didn't mind when Lu Chang'an helped someone twist the bottle cap for the first time, because as Lu Chang'an said, it was a simple task, so why not help? Zhou is a Zhou who really cares about this matter. Although An Nguyen also likes Zo, he is not this style of Zo at all. Let's watch a movie. No one paid attention to the little episode, Lu Chang'an said. The movie begins, it's a movie about vampires. Asking for monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 333. I don't know since when, the word vampire has been connected with words such as elegance, nobility, inheritance, and history. And its Eastern colleague, Mr. Zombie, has almost fixed its image with the movies of Senior Lin Zhenying, with a pale face. It looked like it was smeared with lime, with big dark circles under its eyes, blood-red lips and blackened teeth, and a clown-like uniform of a Qing dynasty official. Similarly, the area where vampires live, the so-called nobles and the lives of nobles in that land are also beautifully depicted. For example, when describing a valet who appears to be the daughter of a noble family and places a female scholar in front of a female scholar, this is how it is written. A small interlude, although it delayed some time, did not disrupt Lucine's unhurried pace. He admired the quiet and independent scenery of Cynthia District, and stopped from time to time to look at the celebrity sculptures standing on both sides of Maplewood Avenue. Read their life stories, pick up a maple leaf, and look at the fine veins of the tree. Through the golden land brought up by the carriage, Louis I saw Magi Luda Yalansi Sansvoda on the house plate. With his name, he gently clicked the door knocker. Inside the door was a courtyard covered with maple leaves. The maid was not diligent in cleaning this scene. A gust of wind passed by, and the drifting gold leaves fell on the window sill. The white lace door curtain opened, revealing a snow-white face without any unnecessary repairs. This is just the novelist's imagination of the Western fantasy world. Although it is not set in Europe before the 18th century, there is no doubt that in the minds of many people, Europe of that era seemed so elegant and sophisticated. This is not the case with this movie. It has almost nothing to do with elegance, and vampires have nothing to do with nobility. The movie also begins with a visit to a mansion. A group of gentlemen wearing wigs, linen cravat, and knee breeches appeared behind the door of Thomas Gresham's mansion. Among the group was an oriental face that was rare in London at this time. Thomas Gresham was the director of the Mint during the era of Queen Elizabeth I. When it comes to the famous bad money drives out good money, anyone with a little bit of education will know it. Oliver Cromwell's head was erected on the flagpole in front of Westminster Hall, the coachman's rude shouting, stinking rubbish piled up everywhere, dust flying in the sky, urine and feces thrown randomly on the street. This is what London is like at this moment, and has nothing to do with elegance and nobility. Among the gentlemen who walked into Gresham's mansion were Robert Boyle, Robert Hooke, Christopher Wren. This group of famous figures gathered together to form the Royal Society for the Advancement of Natural Knowledge in London. Every one of them is famous, except the Easterner who left no name or record. The movie is foreshadowing the horror of London at this time. The life expectancy of aristocrats was only 30 years old. Diseases were rampant and medical knowledge was almost non-existent. Any physical discomfort was a sign of death. London at this time seemed very suitable. The vampire is born, a creature that rises from death. According to the theory of evolution, only abnormal deaths and a huge number of deaths can give birth to creatures like vampires that are more adapted to the current environmental conditions. The scene turned to Charles II. The royal doctors gave him 2 cups of blood. Then they gave him an enema, laxatives, and a dose of sneezing powder. Then they gave him another cup of blood. They also tried using pigeon droppings, and pearl powder was mixed with ointment to rub the king's feet, and after shaving his hair, he used a red-hot iron on it, including the soles of his feet. Finally, the king fell into convulsions, and the doctor used 40 drops of human skull extract potion 4 days later, when the court doctor had no choice but to call the Oriental who participated in the Royal Society. Charles II finally died after drinking the plant medicine prepared by the Oriental. Of course, this Oriental was just a scapegoat. Although he knew many important people, the death of Charles II in his hands became an unpardonable crime. After the Oriental was arrested, he fled all the way and finally hid in a singer's house. In the room. Following the routines of many Western movies, this plot naturally became more relaxed and ambiguous, but the Orientals were eventually discovered, and the singer was pierced through the chest with a sword by the pursuing soldiers who dared to come, and fell in a pool of blood. After the Easterner got rid of his pursuers, he returned to the singer's room again. He pierced his chest, took out the blood from the heart, and poured it into the singer's wound. A miracle happened, and the dying singer came back to life. She became a vampire, and the Oriental man wore a cloak and disappeared into the night. Since then, the showgirl has been looking for the mysterious Easterner. The last scene is that she appears in the East India Company building, with a map of another ancient Eastern country on her desk. The lights in the cinema come on and the movie ends. It turns out that this is how vampires are born, Lu Chang'an said to An Nuan with sudden realization. This is not new, I can only say that the mainland film market is too big. Any film company with ambitions and strength will not give up this market. Properly incorporating Oriental elements will naturally attract our local audiences more. It is a commercial technique, vampires in the West originated from the East. Sure enough, in the face of interests, capital will not give up at all, An Nuan said nonchalantly. What? Lu Chang'an grasped the key point. An Nuan's cheeks turned red, and her image of a reserved and elegant girl who never said dirty words had a big hole in her face. I must have heard wrong, Lu Chang'an reflected on himself. An Nuan stared at him. How could An Nuan say such words to make people look embarrassed? Right, Lu Chang'an was convinced. You provoke me, An Nuan refused. She jumped up and hugged Lu Chang'an's neck, trying to push him down on the seat and ride him. Do you have the qualities? What's the fuss about? The girl who had put the bottle into her mouth by Lu Chang'an came over from the other end and took the opportunity to retaliate against Lu Chang'an's original teasing. Lu Chang'an took the opportunity to hold An Nuan, who was a little embarrassed, in his arms and sat there, shrinking his feet and letting him out of the aisle. The two girls snorted and walked over. An Nuan huddled in Lu Chang'an's arms, looking at Lu Chang'an with sparkling eyes. We and others are gone, there is no one around, we can touch the scene. I'm so stupid for you. Movie theaters are actually full of dark light cameras. An Nuan hit Lu Chang'an, took his hand and left. After walking out of the screening room, Lu Chang'an looked around. An Nuan went to take out the trash. People were coming and going, including a noisy little boy, a little girl staring blankly at the doll machine in front of the claw machine, a young couple buying desserts, and a middle-aged woman snoring in a paid massage chair. There were more people of all races looking down at their phones, waiting for the movie to start. Even though he and An Nuan felt that it was unlikely that he and An Nuan would be able to watch a movie on a whim, and the release of this movie was not just for today, Lu Chang'an still borrowed paper and pen from the front desk of the theater and wrote a sentence on it, to be or not to be, that's a question. Lu Chang'an posted the paper next to the trash can. What are you doing? An Nuan asked, confused. Pretend to be cool. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he pulled An Nuan away. Disgusting, An Nuan thought he was responding to the rude words she blurted out, and trotted to keep up with Lu Chang'an. Asking for monthly ticket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 334. The sunshine in Juncha was still dazzling in the afternoon, emitting strong light and heat. When I walked out of the cinema, I still had the image of ruined and dirty Europe in the movie in my mind. The bustling city and sunshine in front of me created a strong. The contrast is mind-boggling. In any era, the cleanest and purest thing is always a girl after bathing, just like the only brightly colored body in a movie is the body of a singer after she has been bathed. There was an English test where there was a question about to be or not to be, that essay question that required translation. As a result, you wrote a sentence called "Don't be so ordinary in your heart," and the teacher scolded you for being smart, and Nuan chuckled and mentioned Lu Chang'an's embarrassing things are always fun. It really has nothing to do with translation. I just wrote it casually. This sentence comes from the third act of the play Hamlet. Hamlet pretends to be crazy for revenge. He is suspicious and vigilant, and his heart is full of contradictions, so he has such a sigh. Li Yu wrote Xiang Wen Jian Huan, I was careful of the Song Lord's vigilance, and I had to be respectful to the former southern Tang ministers Zhang Ji, Su Xian, and others. I regretted killing Pan Yu, Li Ping and others. Hamlet is a prince, and Li Yu is the empress of the southern Tang dynasty. Hamlet's mother was robbed, and Li Yu's wife was robbed. Isn't it the same? Lu Chang'an bought 2 bottles of orange juice, took one for himself, and gave one to An Nuan. An Nuan was about to unscrew the bottle cap, and after twisting it casually, she groaned twice that the bottle cap was tight, and then took the bottle that Lu Chang'an had unscrewed and gave him hers. You remember the translated sentences about me being scolded by the teacher. Did you like me from a long time ago? Lu Chang'an said with certainty. No. At that time, I was reading classics to improve my English. I happened to read them, so I had an impression. I don't remember anything else about you, and Nuan also said with certainty. That's great. Then you won't remember my confession to you. Then I won't have to prepare gifts on the anniversary of my confession, Lu Chang'an said happily. And Nuan walked up to Lu Chang'an and showed him her fierce expression of biting her lip and showing 2 small tiger teeth. It doesn't matter, just forget it. I remember it anyway. Lu Chang'an didn't pay attention to An Nuan's fierce expression at all, he just stated the objective facts. An Nuan nodded, very satisfied. Talking about memories and profound memories, An Nuan said with emotion, the movie just now should be considered a tragedy. She is immortal and immortal, but the person she wants to find, from Europe to the South Asian subcontinent, and then to East Asia, is misty. No trace. If Lu Chang'an were that Oriental and he were that singer, he would definitely dig up the earth to find him. This is what An Nuan thought when watching the movie. What kind of tragedy is this, if the singer died when she was stabbed in the chest, and the male protagonist did not rush back to save her? That would be a tragedy that meets Lu Xun's definition. Lu Xun believed that tragedy is the destruction of beautiful things to people. Look, the reason why beautiful things are destroyed is mostly at the hands of bad people, Lu Chang'an said disapprovingly. You seem to have a problem with Mr. Lu Xun's definition. Of course I have opinions. What kind of tragedy is this? King Oedipus has been prophesied since birth that he will kill his father and marry his mother. He was abandoned by his father at birth, and he was still driven by fate and made a big mistake. In the end, he was blinded and wandered around. Leo ignored his mother's warning and knew that he would die on the battlefield that day, but for the sake of honor and dignity, he still went to the battlefield. Achilles' heel became the end of his life, and Hector knew that he was not Achilles. Lucy's opponent, however, did not surrender or escape. He went to the battlefield and died in the sorrow of his father and wife. Lu Chang'an smiled. The real tragedy is never achieved by destroying something beautiful. This is very shallow. The approach is like that of many novel authors nowadays. They don't have any profound connotation, nor enough writing power and thoughts. They are only good at killing a beautiful character, mostly a female character, and then relish the realization of their own. The sublimation of the plot or the profound connotation is very ridiculous. This kind of thing is not difficult, it is something that any author can write. It is not a tragedy, it is not profound, it is superficial and boring. I don't have much research on tragedy, but I only like to read works with happy endings. Many romance novels that An Nuan reads are basically in which the male protagonist and the female protagonist finally overcome the obstacles that separate the members of the group. But Professor Lu, sometimes I feel sad when I watch TV dramas, so I have to drag in Nuon to watch those Korean dramas about life and death, natural disasters, man-made disasters, terminal illness, and car accidents. Aristotle said that tragedy is a serious and complete imitation of behavior. Tragedy is very serious, not shocking, and it is not a tear-jerker. The real tragedy is knowing that facing an impossible fate, but still persisting in spite of millions of people, I am determined to go on. In the duel between people and fate, from resentment to action of resistance, and then to the heroism and greatness of destruction, this is the tragedy. Lu Chang'an sighed softly. So, what I am thinking about now is, even if in the endless life, love and marriage are a kind of test and even torture, and I will pull you to face such a fate and fight against it. You mean our future is a tragedy? And Nuon looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief, who seemed to have a broken head. Lu Chang'an nodded seriously. And Nuon stood on tiptoes, hugged Lu Chang'an's neck. Her eyes were filled with a quiet and serious light, her long eyelashes slowly fell, and she said, "Tragedies are all bitter, but remember that I kiss you sweetly now." Of. Lu Chang'an hugged Nuon's slender waist tightly. People were coming and going in front of him and behind him, as if time was passing by. He smelled her warm and sweet breath. Even if such a love is a tragedy, it is also the tragedy he defines. And it is definitely not about destroying the beauty for others to see. The beauty in his arms must be carefully protected and never allowed to be destroyed by anyone, otherwise it will not be a tragic plot, but a plot of purgatory on earth. After what seemed like a long time, Nuon's cheeks felt hot, and her fair waist had red marks under Lu Chang'an's palm. Nuon finally put down her heels, pulled Lu Chang'an and ran away from the entrance of the cinema. It must have been filmed by someone and then uploaded to the internet, and Nuon complained, but she did not regret it. It is normal to have a fresh and indifferent scene in love, like a willow branch touching the river water. Occasionally, it can be passionate and crazy, but there is nothing wrong with it. The question made his heart beat violently and his whole body was filled with sweetness. It's nothing. You are good looking, and you look good in photos. Even if others laugh at you, they will probably envy you for being so beautiful. But I am so lucky that I picked the most beautiful flower among thousands of trees. Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously. He sighed again. It's a pity that it's not in a deserted place, so it's difficult to continue to be moved by the scene. It's annoying, you're not doing anything right. And Nuon raised her little fist and hit Lu Chang'an, her cheeks turned red. In fact, she was also thinking that it had been a while since the two of them kissed for the first time. After kissing several times, she still felt that this was an extremely beautiful and tempting thing, but when will Lu Chang'an's next step be? Hearing him mention something frequently to continue to stir up emotion, does he have a plan? How will he deal with Professor Lu then? She would not take the initiative to stay out all night or stay out for any reason. Or will he climb over the wall? Knocking on the door in the middle of the night? Thinking of the mess in his mind, Nuon's expression turned serious, so as not to expose any flaws for him to discover, he suddenly said, "Where's our orange juice? You come and kiss me, and I'll let you go. I put it down first before kissing you. Then let's buy 2 more bottles to drink." Okay. The two of them went to buy orange juice again, and Nuon twisted it as usual, because from then on she had lost the ability to unscrew the bottle cap when she was with Lu Chang'an, so Nuon hummed and handed the bottle to Lu Chang'an to unscrew it. "Have you lost the ability to unscrew bottle caps?" Lu Chang'an asked, still a little puzzled. "Don't you usually help me unscrew them?" "I didn't. You remembered wrong. I don't have that much strength," and Nuon hit him and then took him to buy clothes. "I was confused, the last chapter also mentioned water." It was completely the origin plot of Lu Chang'an and the vampire. Do I have to write down clearly what is done here and what is done there like an instruction manual? What is the use of this operation? Have many readers been brainwashed by the various jokes about reading comprehension on the internet, and really think that reading comprehension is a brain-dead question? So you have completely lost the ability to read? This is just an extremely simple online novel. I am very worried. Lu Chang'an said that love is a tragedy. Do many people think that An Nuan will die or break up with Lu Chang'an? Day. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 336. The two of them were still wandering around the Beilong Center. An Nuan and Lu Yuang went to buy underwear yesterday. There is no doubt that An Nuan's feeling that she has grown up again is a persistent, fantasy-like illusion. Lu Yuang even thought that she was just fat, and the fat did not reach her breasts. This made An Nuan very angry, so An Nuan did not hesitate to reject several bras recommended by Lu Yuang yesterday. He is not fat at all. If he were, Lu Chang'an would definitely be unable to control his mouth and would beep 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 for a while, but he is not, so he must not be fat. This is why Lu Chang'an and I went shopping in the mall today, and I was obviously in a happier mood. The real reason. Lu Chang'an received a video message from Gao Duai and watched it with An Nuan. Thank you, it's so delicious, Chang'an, I really, ugh. In the video, Gao Duai cried bitterly and thanked Lu Chang'an while dipping the sauce and eating dog meat. His round face was obviously I have lost some weight, and I have mixed feelings about being able to eat authentic shonen food in a foreign land I am not familiar with. Gao Duai was eating, when suddenly several people came over. They first stood aside to observe and ask, and then began to taste a little bit. Seeing that they wanted to take away a lot of him, Gao Duai became angry and resisted, and then there was a fight for meat. The eating battle was mixed with the crisp laughter of girls. When the video was interrupted at the end, the camera turned around and a girl appeared with a reserved smile for a few seconds, then the video was cut off. When my chili sauce and tempeh are ready, I will mail them to him. Lu Chang'an sympathized with Gao Duai very much. It was really uncomfortable for a little fat man not to eat well. His family should have prepared it, and Nuan thought for a while and said, the chili sauce he used to fry pig's feet last time was also pretty good. This is the friendship between classmates. Lu Chang'an is not arrogant enough to think that his hot sauce and black bean sauce are the best in shonen. Yes, that time I posted that it was your cooking, and Gao Duai made 4 or 5 comments there. It felt really stupid and miserable, and Nuan laughed. Actually, there are many northern dishes that are suitable for southerners' tastes, but, after adapting to the tastes of southern Hunan, it really doesn't taste right no matter where I eat them. Lu Chang'an nodded. The point is, the person who took the video was a girl, and Nuan smiled half-heartedly. It's not a dog or an alien, a venom, or anything else. It's okay to take a video of him. I'm afraid Miao Yingying feels a little uncomfortable, and Nuan gloated. It seems like you feel uncomfortable every day. And Nuan bumped into Lu Chang'an, who was provoking her, and analyzed with a serious expression, I guess Gao Duai asked her to take a video and send it to you. This girl is very scheming. If she shows her face inadvertently, you might take this if the video is sent to the classmate group. What do you think Miao Yingying or other classmates will think? Do you think she has a good relationship with Gao Duai, and the relationship is ambiguous, or is it simply a declaration? Lu Chang'an suddenly realized again. Yes, it's the kind of thing that wants people to pay attention to the relationship between her and Gao Duai, just like when I ran downstairs in your dormitory on the first day of school and Nuan knew herself and the enemy. Woman. Lu Chang'an shook his head. I feel that she is not as beautiful as Miao Yingying, but she is better than Miao Yingying, and Nuan said neutrally. Really? Why do I think she is pretty? And Nuan looked at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked around. Who's pretty? You. Well. And Nuan continued, her chin is a bit too pointed and not as round as Miao Yingying's. And she is a double eyelid, and Miao Yingying's double eyelids are quite beautiful. Lu Chang'an simply stopped expressing his opinion. After all, when women talk, they just ask others to act as if they listen to her attentively. As for what he thinks, it doesn't really matter. After walking to a lingerie store that En Nuan and Lu Yuang visited yesterday, En Nuan stopped commenting on the appearance differences between Miao Yingying and that girl, because there were two bras yesterday that En Nuan actually liked. One is on a white background with a pattern of willow leaves, very elegant and clean, very girly. The other one is particularly push-up. The same set of matching underwear has fine pearls dotted with lotus flowers in the stamens on the front, and the white petals are embroidery techniques. Very exquisite. Feeling En Nuan stop, Lu Chang'an turned his head and glanced. Do you want to buy underwear? No, En Nuan said quickly. How could an 18-year-old girl discuss this issue with a boy calmly? Be reserved, be elegant, be shy. I'll help you choose. Lu Chang'an walked in very actively. En Nuan hurriedly grabbed him and pulled him 30 meters away. Think about it. From now on, when you wear underwear, in addition to self-appreciation, it is basically for me to appreciate. I will help you choose first so that you can understand the design style I like. Lu Chang'an has not given up yet. You have a beautiful idea, and Nuan was really shy this time. Through the thick fat, glandular tissue and bones, the pounding sound of her heart could make her clothes tremble a few times. But Lu Chang'an tried to walk to the underwear store again. En Nuan reached out and pulled Lu Chang'an, but oh, she didn't hold him back. After all, she is a weak girl who can't even open a bottle cap. En Nuan did not follow Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an came to the underwear store by himself. After all, it's 2017. It's not uncommon for couples to visit lingerie stores together, but it's not uncommon for men to feel a little embarrassed or unnatural. It's still rare to be able to generously choose a girlfriend, and even fewer men come alone. Lu Chang'an walked around, but no one even came to greet him. Lu Chang'an did meet Bai Hui. This fairy seemed to have the aura of chance encounters, and Lu Chang'an could often meet her. Lu Chang'an raised his hand to greet her, and Bai Hui raised her hand awkwardly. Although she often felt like meeting Lu Chang'an, such as the back view of some tall boys, she never thought of meeting her on such an occasion. He, Lu Chang'an, actually looked at the various bras leisurely after greeting her, which made Bai Hui embarrassed to go up and talk to him. What's more, Bai Hui herself buys bras here, but like any counter, there are very few bras with large cup sizes. The one Bai Hui wants needs to be restocked, and she is waiting for delivery from another store. Bai Hui watched as Lu Chang'an picked two sets, paid for them, and left. They were Bai Hui's favorite two sets, but there was nothing she could do if they didn't have her size. Who did he buy it for? Bai Hui followed quietly. Although the answer she guessed was 99 times accurate, what if it wasn't? That would be so exciting. Friendly recommendation is a new book that needs to be collected, The Strongest Paparazzi in the Fairyland 2018 hot and exciting article. Shock. The lonely old lady cries and complains that the leader of the 10,000 Immortals sect is worse than a beast. Is behind all this the loss of morality or the distortion of human nature? Master of 10,000 Immortals sect, what can I do? I'm also very desperate. I can't catch up with him, I can't beat him to death, so I can only pay the protection fee. He may not be the strongest in the world of cultivation, but he must be the most disgusting. Lu Li, I just like the way you can't stand me but can't kill me. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 337. Lu Chang'an came back from buying two sets of bras and underwear. En Nuan was absent-mindedly playing with her mobile phone. She thought Lu Chang'an was just going to take a look and then take at most 2 photos to show her. She never thought that he was holding a shopping bag of that brand in his hand. He really bought it? En Nuan's cheeks felt hot, as if the wind caressed by the sunshine in September was blowing on the girl's delicate skin. How does it feel when a boy buys you underwear for the first time? Probably very few girls can answer such a question. After all, even if they are old couples, because of the differences in aesthetics between men and women and how little they know about bras. 99% of women buy their own bras. There is a big difference between the purchasing experience of personal items and ordinary coats and skirts. And Nuan is not the kind of girl who always wants her boyfriend to buy her gifts. The cheongsam and umbrella Lu Chang'an gave her are her favorites, so Nuan habitually feels that Lu Chang'an will not get along with ordinary boys. Choose a gift that way. Yes, it is really different from ordinary boys. How can ordinary boys be so thick-skinned? They rush in alone and confidently choose the underwear that girls are pickiest about. What's more, generally, boys give girls buying underwear advice, which is probably after something like that happened between the two of them. Lu Chang'an was lucky. They had just kissed, so he bought this brazenly and took it for granted. He thinks that the style and aesthetics of the underwear she wears have a lot to do with him. I bought 2 sets. Lu Chang'an handed the shopping bag to Nuan. Nuan looked at it with shy eyes. What she said was right. Sometimes when she thinks about it, meeting Lu Chang'an always makes her feel like she has met the right person, and then she realizes that the person she likes turns out to be like this, because he is her favorite. He can even relate to her about what kind of underwear she likes. They happen to be the 2 sets that she liked but didn't buy yesterday. Thank you. Nuan held the shopping bag in both hands and turned his head to look at the floor. When he was selecting inside, could he be imagining what she would wear while selecting? What a bad guy, actually fantasizing about her wearing only her underwear. When will you wear it for me? Lu Chang'an asked expectantly. Nuan raised her head in surprise and looked at Lu Chang'an hesitantly. This guy actually asks so openly and directly. Dream. Nuan blushed and started to beat Lu Chang'an again. I won't wear it for you to see. I'll put it away when I get back. Lu Chang'an laughed and hugged Nuan into his arms. Nuan bit his arm reluctantly. Doesn't this fool not understand a girl's reserve? Nuan was biting someone gently with his teeth, like a silkworm gnawing at a mulberry leaf, when his eyes saw the sneaky white fennel hiding behind a pillar. The two people's eyes met, and Nuan quickly let go of Lu Chang'an's arm, and Bai Hui also walked out awkwardly, but girls have a tacit understanding, that is, when they both feel embarrassed, then no one will give in to each other. Embarrassing things. Hey, what a coincidence. I met Lu Chang'an just now. I happened to have something to ask him, so I came over. Bai Hui adjusted her posture and her original expectation turned into disappointment and boredom. I went to the bathroom just now, and we agreed to buy underwear together, but he ended up buying it himself, Nuan said calmly. If it were any other girl, Nuan would be shy, but since it was Bai Hui, let her misunderstand that she and Lu Chang'an had reached the point where they could go shopping for underwear together safely. By the way, he pinched Lu Chang'an's waist to prevent him from exposing Nuan honestly again. I saw the 2 sets he picked out, and they are the 2 sets I like very much. Unfortunately, they don't have my code as usual. Bai Hui crossed her arms with regret. Anyway, he bought it. It doesn't matter whether I like it or not. As long as he likes it, it's fine, Nuan said helplessly, but if this ambiguous meaning was too obvious, he still wasn't familiar enough to drive a car. He blushed slightly and didn't. The calm control of mature women. But it's enough to deal with. Bai Fen. Bai Hui was really surprised. Although she wanted to show off and compare in desperation, she didn't expect that Lu Chang'an really didn't come to buy underwear for Nuan on a whim. The two of them had already reached the point where Nuan's underwear must be liked by Lu Chang'an. That means Nuan will show Lu Chang'an in her underwear. Mine needs to be transferred. It should be delivered here. I'll go take a look. Bye. Seeing Bai Hui leave unexpectedly and slightly unwilling to accept it, Nuan was satisfied. Bai Hui showed off her big breasts. Nuan retorted that no one cared about her big breasts. No one helped her buy underwear. Successfully defeating this one seemed random. A bust of Vixen appeared where he and Lu Chang'an were. I can go shopping for stockings with you. And Nuan is in a good mood, having swept away the shadow of being defeated by Qinyanan in the morning. Qinyanan just relies on his age and maturity. He still has the strength to defend his sovereignty when facing his peers. When he grows up, he will be able to take it easy. Calmly defeat a high-level fox fairy like Qinyanan. So she decided to reward Lu Chang'an. For the time being, there was no way to let Lu Chang'an appreciate underwear openly, but stockings could be worn every day. She could ask him for his opinion, what kind of clothes he liked, and then wear them for him. This was something she could do shyly. Agreed. Okay, that's what I like. Lu Chang'an was still looking forward to it. Yeah, and Nuan responded softly. Qin's Haiqiang often shouts, Baizi is justice. What do you think? I can do it, and Nuan's voice was soft. White, black, flesh-colored, brown, purple, red, I want them all. Lu Chang'an is a mature adult. Actually, I compared it. Qin's Haiqiang is often obsessed with the height and leg length ratio of those two-dimensional beautiful girls. They seem to be about the same as me, right? Except for some abnormally long ones. That's true. Lu Chang'an agreed, especially since Nuan rarely wore wedge heels today, making her look even taller and taller. Nuan took Lu Chang'an's hand to buy stockings, but Nuan is a kind girl. Even though Bai Hui showed off her breasts just now, Nuan did not pull Bai Hui over and hit Nuan in areas where she had advantages. Xia Beifan, alas, she has short legs after all. Nuan walked into the store with Lu Chang'an with her head held high while sympathetic. Because today is Double 11, the relevant content is also shopping. As a holiday non-staff member, Xia Hua didn't buy anything today. She was so poor that she didn't even have a monthly pass to feed Zhou Dongdong. Is this more surprising? Asking for a monthly ticket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xia Hua. Chapter 338. In 1589, before vampires were born, the Englishman William Lee invented the world's first hand knitting machine to knit woolen trousers. 10 years later, William met a mysterious Oriental man. Has its own caravan. A team of skilled workers and armed forces. He was very interested in William's knitting machine and helped William transform the knitting machine. The modified knitting machine could be used to produce fine stockings with a silk-like feel, but William did not thank him because the Oriental man ordered his French friend Fournier to leave William in Lyon and start producing silk stockings. The European court and upper-class socialite ladies are almost crazy about stockings, especially in bright red and purple colors. These silk stockings made the thighs of European ladies and ladies, who could never take a few baths in their lifetimes, smooth and soft, and thus became an indispensable item of clothing. Of course, the milestone of stockings was the nylon stockings invented by DuPont in 1937, and then came lycra stockings, women's socks, mid-calf socks, stockings, knee-high socks, pantyhose, garter stockings. Because of the beginning, covering up has become a dream for men. For example, Liao highly praised garters. Lu Chang'an also likes garters, but garters often give people the impression that sexy and mature women control their seductive charm. In fact, many beautiful girls now secretly use garters to hold up their stockings under their short skirts. Although visiting a sock store together is a reward from Anyuan, the reason why we can actually give this reward is because there are far less privacy elements here than in an underwear store. The socks in the sock store do not provide trial fitting, and pairs are packed in boxes. Here, some leg models wearing socks are not necessarily alluring. After all, there are not many perverts who can still have wild imaginations when they see one leg alone. Nuan bought all the socks that Lu Chang'an's eyes lingered on for a moment. In the end, she only bought 15 pairs. The price was relatively cheap, less than 1,500 yuan, and the total price was higher than the 2 sets of underwear Lu Chang'an bought. Fortunately, I usually don't have anything to spend money on, and all the pocket money I saved is used to satisfy you. And Nuan was very satisfied with her words, because it took her 3 minutes to make up her mind to say this. Her boyfriend, unlike other men, you must use some suggestive words such as satisfaction to remind him, stimulate him, and prompt him to make some advances. Don't just talk and take advantage all day long, but actually abide by the standards. Never go beyond. I made some money selling dog meat a few days ago. The money Lu Chang'an spent to buy in Nuan's underwear was the life of a high-level Templar. None of us seem to be very talented in financial management. You are from the accounting department. What do you mean? That's what you think. Remember what you said today. I always keep my word, and I never manage my own money. However, I have a habit of digging a hole to bury it when I have too much money. It's a pity that you don't have much money until now. Nonsense, the horseshoe gold in the provincial museum next door belongs to me, I just asked them to keep it for me. After buying the stockings, Nuan went to the store to pick out 2 shirts and a pair of pants for Lu Chang'an. In high school, Lu Chang'an usually wore school uniforms, or pants and vests, but that day Lu Chang'an wore hanfu, which perfectly explained what Nuan thought was the ancient style. With the image and temperament that a talented man should have, the thought of letting his girlfriend dress up her boyfriend began to ferment. Obviously she has a boyfriend with a good image and temperament, why should he be buried in a casual daily image? You have to dress him up and look good yourself. After shopping, Lu Chang'an sent Nuan back. Nuan told Lu Yuwang in advance not to buy food and cook. The two bought ingredients in the supermarket and took them back, while Lu Chang'an cooked. Lu Yuwang asked them to buy more wipes. It turned out that Professor Ling had returned from Shanghai. Lu Yuwang was going to go out to eat with Professor Ling, but since Lu Chang'an was coming to cook, there was no reason to go outside. After eating Lu Chang'an's cooking once, it will make people swallow their saliva obediently and wait for it the second time. What's more, since he recognized the relationship between Nuan and Lu Chang'an, Lu Yuwang also wanted Professor Ling to see it and set a standard. He hoped that the boyfriend Hans he would bring back in the future could be as good in the hall, in the kitchen, and as good as Lu Chang'an. It worked. No, it was a facial cream. After dinner, Nuan cleared the table and went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. 2 middle-aged women sat on the sofa. Lu Yuwang did not make tea for Lu Chang'an as usual. How shameless was this in front of others? Lu Yuwang tried to ask Lu Chang'an to make tea, but Lu Chang'an actually agreed. This made Lu Yuwang feel a little happy. This guy who couldn't get into trouble really gave him face today. This made Lu Yuwang feel happy. He couldn't help but think that Professor Ling was not here. It would be great if Lu Chang'an was so obedient. Let him cook, let him make tea, let him make facial cream, let him hand over his mobile phone. Lu Yuwang is a little hesitant now. This guy, what if it was really that uncle? Luer, your skin, why do I feel it's better than before? Professor Ling was drinking tea and thought seriously that Lu Chang'an, the kid who makes tea, is better than Lu Yuwang, but he suddenly discovered a terrible fact. Why is it scary? Because they usually go out together as sisters. Others always think that there is a generation gap between her and Lu Yuwang. Now Lu Yuwang's little face seems to have grown in reverse. Can Professor Ling not be upset? Professor Ling doesn't mind Lu Yuwang calling her Lao Ling, but Lu Yuwang doesn't allow others to call her Lao Lu. Yes, my skin feels more moisturized, thanks to Chang, and Lu Yuwang's tone was full of affection. Women usually pay special attention to people who give them love, wealth, or beauty. What do you mean? Professor Ling was startled. This is too ambiguous. He made a facial cream, and Nuan and I used it. Lu Yuwang couldn't help but show off. Lu Chang'an shook his head, like mother, like daughter. Lu Chang'an planned to go to the kitchen to help An Nuan wash the dishes, but Professor Ling stopped him and asked about the facial cream. Lu Chang'an naturally insisted that there was no more cream. Lu Yuwang did not hold him back at this time. After some explanations, Professor Ling finally gave up. Although Professor Ling didn't believe his intention to pay a lot of money for the purchase, he was paying attention to his relationship with Lu Yuwang. If he asked the mother-in-law to find Lu Chang'an in the future, he didn't believe that he really didn't want to give anything. "How can you be so disrespectful?" Lu Chang'an answered Qin Yinan's call, took the opportunity to say goodbye, and walked towards Lushan Mountain. He heard the roar of a helicopter halfway up the mountain, and saw a helicopter flying from the direction of the Hunan University campus landing in the valley. Remember Yan Qingcheng said that the valley was haunted? I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 340. Speaking of being haunted, Lu Chang'an was reminded of Yuan Mei's Zi Baiyu and Pu Songling's strange stories from a Chinese studio. In the decades since he went there, even the video halls showing imported movies in the middle of the night were rare, and the small bookstores on the street were very sneaky. Zhou secretly kept magazines smuggled from Hong Kong and Taiwan under the cabinet. Many young people could read these two books and get excited, unable to control themselves, and finally unable to control themselves. For example, in the chapter The Hairy Man Seizes Women, most women in the Northwest do not use drowning devices to urinate. In the countryside of Xianing County, Shaanxi Province, there was a woman named Zhao, who was 20 years old, white and graceful. On a moonlit night in midsummer, she was naked and wild, and she would not return for a long time. Probably just such a scale was enough to make the blood of teenagers of that era get excited, and the white body of the young woman on the moonlit night came to mind. Imagination is an important factor in the progress of human civilization. This conclusion has nothing to do with the previous article. Lu Chang'an was just wondering, is the so-called haunting the result of someone really pretending to be a ghost in this valley, or is it the result of people using their imaginations as a result of being misled by some natural events without seeing the truth? Lu Chang'an has never seen a real ghost. He used to think that Shang Guandandan was a zombie, but even if he didn't understand the mechanism of the coffin, he could still see that Shang Guandandan had normal physiological mechanisms and supercell vitality, and used muscles to drive body movements of normal humans. Seeing the helicopter falling from a distance, and only hearing the roar of the rotor gradually dissipating, Lu Chang'an thought for a while and continued walking to the top of the mountain. After pressing the button for the elevator door opened, and Qin Yinan's voice came, telling him to come directly to the top of the building. Before stepping out of the elevator door, I heard the singing of Tale as Old as Time, the melodious singing voice of a middle-aged woman. The song you played is full of hints? Are you scolding me? Lu Chang'an said, smelling the aroma. A playlist carousel, just put here. What's more, I am a legend, you are a low-key legend. It is different, Qin Yinan explained while complimenting, and couldn't help but think of Zhu Huntang saying that she was a licker. Qin Yinan, he didn't take it seriously, but he was a little proud. How could such a man get anything by licking him? Of course, Qin Yinan felt that her real mood was respect. Lu Chang'an was just talking casually. He walked over and took a deep breath. He couldn't help but prepare his mouth for the necessary secretions when chewing and swallowing. What are you? Shh, just eat it, don't say what it is. Qin Yinan cut a large roasted feline egg into a plate, sprinkled some sauce on it, and handed it to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an sat at the dining table and ate a delicious meal. Before eating, he said with emotion, I have never been so grateful to Ziking for sending you to Junsha. Qin Yinan smiled. Everyone said that food, sex, and indeed food comes before sex for a reason. He turned a blind eye to her dressing up today, but he was particularly happy with the barbecue she cooked for him. There will be roasted whip and roasted brains later. I think you like to eat such strong flavors, but the brains are ordinary black pig brains. Chinyanan continued to stand in front of the barbecue and was busy. What kind of heavy taste is this? Lu Chang'an disagreed. In all animals, the most perfect and delicate evolution that makes the taste rich is the brain and reproductive system. As for the muscles and organs in other parts, they are often very rough, even if they are things like the so-called snowflake beef, which is said to be magical, can actually easily achieve a similar taste using fat injection and other methods. Psychological effects, the so-called sense of ritual and self-satisfaction play a larger role. Yet Chinyanan didn't argue with him. She poured a layer of oil on her hair, picked up the water bottle and took a sip. A drop of water fell down, dripping on her chest and falling down. It tastes really good, it's rare that it still looks fresh. Isn't it hard to get this fresh? Lu Chang'an casually said a question that did not require Chinyanan to answer, and said, Zhu Huntang didn't come to see you. She has been busy learning to dance recently. Chinyanan shook his head, glanced at the fire, took a piece of fruit and 2 cocktails and sat down on the lounge chair next to the dining table. You look good in a swimsuit. Lu Chang'an took the wine and nodded in praise. He finally saw it. Chinyanan felt like he saw a child wearing new clothes, walked over and touched the child's head and said, Nana is so beautiful today. Chinyanan was wearing a pink swimsuit. The swimming trunks were more like girls' daily hot pants without too many sexy elements. The top was more like a sports vest. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been too lazy to change and just asked Lu Chang'an to come up and have a barbecue in the swimming pool. If Lu Chang'an is willing, he can also change into big pants while eating barbecue and drinking wine, and feel the coolness after sunset on the top of the mountain. And Nuan is not angry with me today, right? I like to be straightforward. She said we would have dinner together, so I agreed. I didn't bother you, right? Chinyanan mentioned it casually, as if she was casual. Just like 80% of murderers will come back after escaping the scene and pretending to be a crowd, normal people will want to know the other person's reaction when they use some scheming or means to deal with others. Since when did you like to be straightforward? Lu Chang'an smiled. Chinyanan's cheeks were slightly red, and she ate some of the barbecue Lu Chang'an handed over. Then she pretended that the topic was over and didn't ask any more questions. Can't you just follow the other person's thoughts and don't hit them in the face so bluntly? After the barbecue, let's go see the valley later. Chinyanan stood up and went to flip the ingredients on the barbecue grill. Lu Chang'an finished the food in his mouth and felt the aftertaste before saying, that valley is said to be haunted. Did you find anything? Today's physical examination, I found out that besides us, there is another student who also did some tricks during the physical examination. Chinyanan poked his head, smelled the aroma, sprinkled a piece of green onion and brought it over. Guan Yuan. Chinyanan nodded. She was a little surprised that Lu Chang'an found out, but it was natural that his vision was higher than hers. This student once disappeared briefly, after he had a conflict with you that night. Therefore, their counselor Chi Zhendao also came to talk to you. According to what he said to his classmates and Chi Zhendao after he appeared later, I woke up in that valley, I just want to go to that valley, and there have long been some ridiculous rumors about that valley among teachers and students in the school. Chinyanan has already done some research. Okay, let's go and take a look. Lu Chang'an didn't care much about Guan Yuan, but he was a little curious about what Guan Yuan had gone through. What's more, Chinyanan also wanted to take a look. He wouldn't stop her, so he had to stop by and take a look. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 341. The action for tonight was decided, but it did not affect Lu Chang'an and Chinyanan's continued eating. After eating the brain, Chinyanan went to get the animal essence whip. I don't know how many little cuties I have conquered during my lifetime, but turning them into delicacies can still make people eat them until they are full, rather than leaving them unsatisfied. This is the pinnacle of the meaning of an animal's life. From a human perspective, there is no problem in drawing conclusions based on human superiority. Some people are kind, some are cruel, some eat people, and some are eaten. In the animal world, it has always been about eating and being eaten, and how to eat. Why do I still gain weight? Qinyanan felt a little confused and dissatisfied, and touched her belly. Lu Chang'an was also puzzled. His lower abdomen didn't even have circles when he was sitting. Where could he be fat? Why do women always say they are fat? But if he really agreed, he would probably be looked down upon, so Lu Chang'an still said nothing. Just as Lu Chang'an's wisdom concluded, Qinyanan raised such a question and did not need explanation or approval. She continued, I feel like my legs are thicker again. So Lu Chang'an took another look at the long, white legs under the swimming trunks, but also said nothing. After saying these nonsense, Qinyanan muttered that she had eaten too much meat recently, and then walked downstairs with her voluptuous waist and plump figure of a mature woman. Lu Chang'an continued to eat the remaining skewers. The moon was bright, the stars were sparse, the clouds were light and the wind was gentle, and the birds were chirping. Lu Chang'an squinted his eyes. A woman with excellent cooking skills would always make people move closer to her perfect image, at least extra points. A lot of. Listening to the footsteps behind him, Lu Chang'an asked casually, do you still like to drink bird's nest porridge? Still. I like it. I made it one morning and asked me to drink it. Okay, old man. Lu Chang'an smiled and saw Qinyanan walking in front of him. She had already changed into a short black leather jacket. It looks a bit like the image of Marvel's Black Widow, except that Black Widow's tight black leather jacket is made into short sleeves. Although it is not too tight, it can still be seen that Qinyanan has a fuller figure than Scarlet. Secret investigator, Lu Chang'an thought of a serious female image in a serious plot in a serious Japanese drama. No, Qinyanan's cheeks were slightly red. She didn't know what secret investigator Lu Chang'an was talking about, so she gave Lu Chang'an a black t-shirt, pants, and shoes. Do I want to dress up like this? Do you want to play cosplay? Lu Chang'an said with a lack of interest. I think we look more professional this way. Qinyanan was a little out of breath, and couldn't help but pull down the zipper a little bit, and finally breathed normally. I won't wear it, Lu Chang'an refused. For the sake of this barbecue, Qinyanan's somewhat coquettish request was not taking advantage of women's weak position to habitually act coquettishly to powerful men to solve problems, but the natural advantages of the younger generation. This barbecue was really irresistible, so Lu Chang'an had no choice but to agree. He didn't expect that Qinyanan actually had some superhero complex. Looking back, it can be seen from the first time she named it Knight's Alliance. Lu Chang'an went downstairs, took a shower, and then changed into the clothes Qinyanan had prepared. Qinyanan was waiting for him in the living room. When she saw Lu Chang'an coming out, her eyelashes twitched and she praised shyly, I didn't notice that you have such a good figure. I'm tall and thin, so I'm actually not suitable for wearing this kind of clothes. In order to satisfy your taste and not disappoint you, I have to bulge up my muscles to support the scene. If Zhu Huntang had asked him to do this kind of thing, Lu Chang'an would have long ago the fairy was sent up to the sky with one kick, but she was Qinyanan, the sister he had doted on for many years. I remember that at that time, I went to the farm to cool off in the summer, but the sound of frogs outside the farm at night disturbed the little girl and made her sleep at night. He was restless and couldn't sleep, so he took the villagers to catch all the nearby frogs and made an extremely sumptuous frog feast. However, there were no frogs at that time and the insect infestation was difficult to control, so the harvest of that farm was still greatly reduced. Quite a few. The corners of Qinyanan's mouth curled up softly, and she walked over and tugged at Lu Chang'an's clothes pointlessly to adjust them. After all, she was a little special to him, but she didn't know that Nuan asked him to do something purely for satisfaction. How does he react when he does something interesting and boring? Qinyanan didn't want to compete with Nuan in everything, She just thought about it, just thought about it. I think of the Hulk, but the Hulk's muscles are too exaggerated. Qin Yinan was somewhat envious of Lu Chang'an's ability to adapt his body shape. If she could do the same, she would also like to change her body shape. Actually, to a certain extent, I'm a bit similar to the Hulk. We can't fly, but we can jump very high and have great strength. Pure physical strength, without all the fancy abilities. Lu Chang'an made a comparison and clicked. Nod. But the Hulk is green, which is a bit unlucky. You are pink. Qin Yinan smiled. Pink? I'm not a fairy. Fairies only like pink girls. Of course, Lu Chang'an also likes pink girls, but he likes pink girls, not himself. With strong peach blossom luck, a person's complexion, luck, and the surrounding air will appear pink. Qin Yinan explained while suppressing the hum in her nose. Lu Chang'an looked at the pink air around him, and finally his eyes fell on Qin Yinan. Her face was pink, and he reached out and rubbed the top of her head. Let's go. Qin Yinan followed Lu Chang'an. They did not walk out of the hotel directly. After all, the hotel is located on the top of Lushan Mountain, surrounded by places where tourists are concentrated. As long as they avoid this area, most places in the huge Lushan Mountain are inaccessible at this time. Lu Chang'an picked up Qin Yinan, jumped from the viewing balcony, and landed on a tree. Although Qin Yinan was wearing short clothes, her skin characteristics meant that Lu Chang'an did not have to be careful for fear of scratching the girl's delicate skin. Then he jumped off the steep mountain wall of more than 20 meters. Lu Chang'an put Qin Yinan down, and the two of them shuttled through the mountain forest. Lu Chang'an suddenly stopped and Qin Yinan accidentally bumped into Lu Chang'an's back. Lu Chang'an grabbed Qin Yinan with his backhand without looking back. Qin Yinan gritted his teeth. If it were in the past, as a woman, such an impact would definitely be uncomfortable, but now it doesn't hurt, but the feeling of having a spring in her chest is really weird. There is movement. Lu Chang'an lowered his voice. Qin Yinan paid close attention, then she raised her head, her eyes were shy, and she glared angrily at Lu Chang'an, who had just judged what the movement was. It turns out to be a common scene in the animal world. Do you remember Zhao Zongxiang's explanation? Lu Chang'an imitated Zhao Zongxiang's voice in a low voice. Spring is warm, flowers are blooming, everything is recovering, and it's the season of education and training again. The male turtle lies on the female turtle's lap. There was a hearty sound coming from the body. I have to say that what Lu Chang'an learned was so similar that it made Qin Yinan feel that there was a man and a woman in front of her teaching and training at this moment, and Zhao Zhongxiang was right next to her giving her live explanations. You old man, Qin Yinan pushed Lu Chang'an and pushed his face forward angrily. He couldn't bear it. Lu Chang'an continued to move forward. He did not disturb the other party. He could not make love in the wild by himself. It was recorded in the Book of Songs to Red Sorghum. It was beautifully recorded and explained in Animal World. The narration is inherently interesting and ubiquitous. Visible things. Give me a monthly pass, my old swan. I recommend a book called Super Mothership. It is both funny and imaginative, and it is a light-hearted and funny science fiction farming article. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 342. The night was just right, and the Milky Way, which was rarely seen in the city, hung overhead. It was rare to see it in the mountains. Unfortunately, it was extremely rare to see the Milky Way and the bright moon hanging together in the sky. In a clear moonless night sky, the dimmest stars visible to ordinary people are 6.5 magnitude. If there is a bright moon in the sky, only 4.5 magnitude stars can be seen. 9 out of 10 stars in the sky will be reduced in an instant, and the Milky Way will be submerged in the moonlight. After The starlight passed through the forest and fell on the feet. There were broken branches among the rotten leaves. The squeaking sound was particularly harsh when stepping on them. Qin felt that his cheeks were a little sore when he gritted his teeth. The steps of himself and Lu Chang'an. The sound finally disturbed the man and woman. Okay, it seems like someone. Maybe it's a wild beast in the mountains. Ah! Such a conversation made Qin unbearable and he ran forward. Then he heard the woman's scream. Qin ran across the hillside before stopping. Lu Chang'an chased after him and looked at Qin who stretched out his hand to hold down a thick maple tree. I really don't know what these people are thinking. Don't they even have the money to buy a house? Qin's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. They also said that we are wild beasts, they themselves are the wild ones covering the sky and the earth. It's possible, Lu Chang'an agreed. There are still a large number of poor people in our country. The area around Lushan is mainly students. For the student group, it is difficult to afford the cost of frequent housing. Lu Chang'an's serious explanation left Qin speechless, as if he should really be considerate of others and not why don't you eat minced meat. What's more, Lushan Iwan Pavilion is one of the 4 traditional maple viewing places. The poem goes, far up the Hanshan mountain, the stone path is sloping, and there are people deep in the white clouds. Stop and sit in the Iwan Pavilion at night, and the frosty moon is as red as the February flowers. Lu Chang'an nodded, maybe people really think it's something elegant. It's rare that they chose an extremely remote place, but they didn't expect that we, who have the same elegance as them, would come here. Have the same elegance? Qin pressed her chest and pulled the zipper up and down with her fingers to the rhythm of her breathing. Her cheeks were as red as the maple leaves around her. Don't misinterpret what I mean. Having the same elegance means that we all have the mentality of traveling at night. Having the same elegance means doing the same things. At such a young age, what are we thinking about in our heads? Lu Chang'an knocked Qin on the head, walked around the maple tree and continued walking forward. Qin once again experienced Lu Chang'an's strong words, but he had no choice but to secretly spit "I'm not serious" and quickly followed his footsteps. Going down the slope, groping in the mountain forest, pushing aside ungrown shrubs and thorns, Lu Chang'an and Qin came to a tree covered with vines and looked at the valley ahead. Lushan scenic area was not very prosperous before 2010. Like many tourist attractions, they tried to increase their income and contracted out the valley next to the small lake. A wedding photography company built a 3-story European-style house here. The long building is surrounded by a rose garden full of roses, a white piano, a suspension bridge, rocking chairs, semicircular arches, and other props that often appear in wedding photography scenes. At this moment, the starlight flows, making all the props left in the valley clearly visible. The night covers their dilapidation. This scene has a somewhat romantic atmosphere, or combined with the legend of ghost stories, that is, it's so ghostly. If there is really any problem, it is in the house opposite. Lu Chang'an looked around and his eyes fell on the long building opposite. Qin also looked away from the small triangular glass house by the lake, thinking about those wedding photos that looked beautiful and elegant. It turned out that they were all taken in this kind of ghost place. Popular Western-style wedding photos were probably like this. The big red wall of the Forbidden City. In the future, when you take wedding photos, you must be more grand. Ahem, what did you say? Qin glanced at Lu Chang'an and came to his senses. Let's go around. Lu Chang'an did not repeat what he said. In this inaccessible place, there was no need to be careful. He picked up Qin, jumped over the valley, and landed on the opposite side near the long building. Qin got off his arms, and he became more and more skilled at picking her up. It was obviously the most romantic princess hug between men and women, but Qin felt that it was no different from him picking up a bench. This person was warm and fragrant when he was in his arms. The reactions of men described in the novel seemed not to be seen at all in him. After walking around in a circle behind the long building, It was quiet and dead, with no light or sound, as if it was just an empty house. "Shall we go in and take a look?" Qinyanan asked. Lu Chang'an nodded. Snapped. It wasn't that there was really any switch, or the crisp sound of sparks exploding, but it was just that his eyes suddenly lit up, as if he heard the sound of someone turning on the switch. The glass on the front and side of the long building in front of me suddenly became transparent and bright, and the white light illuminated the entire building. In the deep valley, it seemed that even the walls had become transparent, as if it was a thin and fragile white building. A house made of paper, while the light inside palely illuminates the dilapidated garden near the valley. The paths and vestibules covered with layers of fallen leaves are like oil paintings, frozen in the moment of decay caused by time. Is there really a ghost?" Qinyanan held Lu Chang'an's hand, and her heart was still beating through the thick fat. She was different from ordinary atheists. A Marxist fighter and a staunch party member are different. After all, she has experienced many things similar to possession. Yes, Ijin, although Lu Chang'an explained it as obsession, isn't ghost also a kind of obsession? Yes, Ijin's obsession has dissipated, so is it someone's obsession that has formed the existence of ghosts in this valley? Don't be afraid, all ghosts are afraid of me. Lu Chang'an patted the back of Qinyanan's hand. If there are ghosts, then there is probably the underworld, and maybe there is also a book of life and death. A guy like himself who has no name in the book of life and death and is not reincarnated, calls himself the god of death, must be on an equal footing with the lord of hell. He doesn't have much objection to calling him a brother. What does a mere ghost mean? Black and white are impermanent. Qinyanan was just feeling at ease when he caught sight of the two ghost figures clinging to the glass. One was really black and the other was white, and they were so ghostly. It's a bit short today, but it will burst out tomorrow. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 344. Two shadows, one black and one white, are close to the glass. From the perspective of Lu Chang'an and Qinyanan, you can see that their faces have become flat because they are squeezed by the glass. The four eyeballs seem to be rotating against the glass. On the left, move a little bit, move a little to the right, and then return to the central position, staring directly at Lu Chang'an and Qinyanan. The long building is brightly lit, and you can clearly see the various photography props hanging in the empty interior. Large areas of white dust cloth can be seen everywhere, and a beautifully made rose field is behind the two shadows, which is romantic. The scene merged with strange black shadows, the white light illuminated the walls, and the dark valley and residual scenery outside the window made it all seem like a common scene in a ghost movie. Qinyanan believed in the existence of ghosts. No matter how ghosts were defined, she felt that her own personal experience was enough to explain the problem. What's more, aliens like herself and Lu Chang'an lived without leaving a trace in the world of ordinary people. Ghosts have always been what is so difficult to understand if it is unknown? Lu Chang'an sneered and jumped up. His figure was like a flying bat shadow in the dark night. He was extremely fast. He spread his arms and swept his left foot. He suddenly kicked down the entire glass window and the brick wall below. The sound of shattering glass was particularly harsh in the valley, several loud noises echoed, and all the silence was dispersed by Lu Chang'an's fierce kick. In the rendering of dilapidated ruins and in the cover of the night, the beasts, ghosts, and snake gods seemed to show their teeth and claws, hiding in the shadows that are difficult to detect with the eyes, making people feel extremely ferocious and frightening, but most of the time, human beings' negative emotions come from the psychology is subject to various hints, and only the power that sweeps everything can exude an unbridled and violent momentum, making these ghosts disappear and dissipate, shivering, and no longer have any power to confuse people's hearts. Qinyanan came back to her senses and looked at Lu Chang'an standing under the light of the long building. The fearful aura just now disappeared completely. Only then did she realize that there was probably no ghost here, but there were people pretending to be ghosts. Qin Yinan walked behind Lu Chang'an and took a breath of cold air. There were no ghosts, but the combination of black men and white men in front of him was no less impressive. One of the black men had gnarled muscles, as if he were a fitness enthusiast who had taken countless chemicals to pursue extreme muscle growth. No, to be precise, this was a miniature version of the Hulk, or the Black Giant. The same was true for another white man. What surprised Qin Yinan was that there was no doubt that these two people were the shadows stuck on the glass just now, but they clearly did not have such huge bodies just now. Both of them were over 2.5 meters tall. Even if Yao Ming stood in front of them, he would still be a small man. He and Lu Chang'an were like two saplings standing in front of an elephant. Lu Chang'an. We meet again, the black man laughed arrogantly, his teeth grinding in his mouth, mixed with the sound of saliva being rolled around by his tongue. I'm going to kill you. The white man's eyes were fierce, and his two huge eyeballs were densely covered with red bloodshot eyes, as if blood vessels were covering the eyeballs. Have we met before? Lu Chang'an thought casually, but he didn't recognize them. Then he thought carefully about the wild boars, gorillas, hippos, rhinos, etc. in Junshizhu, and he really didn't recognize these two. G and Pierre, the black man. G raised his arms and roared, glaring at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an finally got the impression and nodded. Didn't you commit suicide? We were thrown into the waste well by you. The white man. Pierre was furious. The monkey in front of him was the person that Pierre hated the most in his life, far more than the street gangsters who bullied his brothers when he lived in the slums. He actually threatened G and raped Pierre. In the end, he went back on his word and threw himself into the waste well, without letting G go. No, Lu Chang'an's impression was not like this. Although we fought, I remember that you committed suicide. Yes, you said that Pierre was humiliated and wanted to commit suicide, but his hands and feet were broken. You understood his will very well, so you helped him realize his wish, so he committed suicide. What about me? G took 2 steps forward. Gasping for hot breath, accompanied by strings of saliva flowing down. After Pierre committed suicide, didn't you also jump into the well? I pulled you up because I still had some questions to ask. This was an interruption in the event. After asking, I let you continue to complete what you originally wanted to do. The willingness to jump into the waste well. What's the problem with this? Of course you commit suicide. Lu Chang'an has never been a person who dares to do something he doesn't dare to do. There is no need to deny it, it's just that it is obviously like this. Then I will make you commit suicide today. The enemy was extremely jealous when he saw him. Pierre walked over and stretched out his hand to twist off Lu Chang'an's head like a chicken. Pierre's palm was as big as Lu Chang'an's head. Lu Chang'an stepped back, reached out to pick up Qin Yinan, then jumped to a nearby pavilion with her in his arms. Ji also ran over. His huge body gave him great strength, but his speed was not as fast as the Hulk. He ran to the edge of the bamboo wood structure pavilion and smashed the entire pavilion with one punch. The cover of the pavilion spun and flew away. It went out and smashed onto the tree trunk next to it, flying in all directions. Several wooden pillars were like weapons thrown by giants, with astonishing power. One of them was inserted into the soil, half of it was submerged. You still want to run away today? Pierre's sinister voice sounded from behind Lu Chang'an, and the two brothers surrounded Lu Chang'an one after another. You stand on the roof and watch. No matter what the situation is, no matter how badly I was beaten, you don't want to end up. Of course, don't leave, let alone run for your life, Lu Chang'an said to Qin Yinan in his arms. Qin Yinan was stunned for a moment, because she didn't know if Lu Chang'an could deal with these two monsters, but there was no way she could abandon Lu Chang'an and escape by herself. The problem was that in this situation, wouldn't men usually say, go away quickly, don't worry about me, you must live well by yourself. If you don't listen to me, I will hit your palm with a ruler. Lu Chang'an smiled softly, took out his mobile phone and handed it to Qinyanan for safekeeping, then raised his hand and threw Qinyanan to the roof of the Changlu. Qinyanan landed firmly and looked nervously at Lu Chang'an, who was being confronted by the black man Bapi. The two monsters just turned a blind eye to Qinyanan. It was obvious that their attention was only on Lu Chang'an. "I'm going to kill you," Pierre shouted, rushed over, and punched Lu Chang'an on the chest. Lu Chang'an's body trembled, and the huge force made his body twitch. Then Ji's fist came from behind and hit him hard on the back.